welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my garden in Queensland, Australia on an absolutely fabulous day. Looks like about 30 degrees, completely cloudless up there, just beautiful. So when I made the decision to move back and live in this house and create a large garden, I knew then that I would need to be very aware of the water needs for such a large space. And for me, the decision was quite simple. It was an absolute environmental decision. I know that when there are people in the world who don't have clean drinking water, that I should be not standing watering from a tap. So when I first started the garden, I knew there'd be water tanks. We now have the capacity to store 60,000 litres of water in tanks that we have, and potential for another tank to go in there as well. I worked to get a garden that I called was drought tolerant, and for me that meant that 90%, 95% of the plants in my garden could live in this garden over a week without any watering at all. And this is what I've achieved. As I had planned on planting a lot of roses in my garden, it took a couple of years for me really to work out their watering habits. And what I've realised is that I can leave a rose for 1 week without watering, as long as when I water it right down here in its little watering tube, and I give it a good 30-second drenching. They must be watered at the bottom. They, to me, are drought-tolerant plants. These beautiful dianthus are also drought-tolerant plants and will live in my garden for weeks. What you need to remember is that all the plants in your garden in the same space need to have exactly the same water needs. And in this garden, I have dianthus, I have African daisies, and I have salvia, and I have roses, so all with the same water needs. Australian natives, of course, these could go months and years without water. Perfect in my drought-tolerant garden. I just have to be water-wise here and water-conscious. So every garden that I have, whether it be in a cart like this or in a garden, has a mulch of some sort across the top. And this is sugarcane mulch. It's about 3 or 4 inches deep. So any moisture that's in there gets saved underneath, so less water requirement. The gardens that have roses within my garden all have tree bark mulch, as you can see. Once again, very, very deep. And it took a long time to put that down. There's 110 cubic meters of wood chip in my back garden. The one thing it does is keeps it moist under the ground. And another bonus is no more weeds. Water needs in this garden, absolutely zero. These plants in here need only the rain that falls from above. So no extra time, no extra water needed to keep these alive. How about this beautiful lamandra longfolia? This one's been in the ground a couple of years. It's obviously a grass, and you just look after it for a couple of weeks, make sure it's wet, make sure it establishes itself, and then it is this green and this lush all year round, growing to about 1.3, 1.4 meters in my garden, and just keeps multiplying around the base and getting bigger. And this year, for the first time, the flower spikes have come out, and there are going to be lovely white and cream flowers all the way through it. You can see the spikes from here. Everyone needs a lamandra longfolia. No water needed for this. Finally, what are my tips for creating a water-wise garden? Firstly, collect as much water as you can from above. If you had the potential for tanks, put tanks in and use that water. Secondly, mulch, mulch, mulch. Cover all of your gardens, especially in a warmer climate. Cover those gardens with some sort of mulch. And thirdly, choose plants that are drought tolerant. There are so many of them, from grasses to roses to bulbs to perennials to annuals to trees. There are so many plants that you can choose that are drought tolerant with very low water needs once you put them in your garden. So happy gardening in your water-free garden.